Okay, hodl, hodl, hodl. Save, save, save. Build it, build it, build it. Sound money, sound money. Hello, guys. This is Ugly Old Goat, and we're doing this is for members only right now, but we're doing a new format, and I just want to inform members of this because hopefully it will go very well. We're just going to have some fun on a Sunday afternoon discussing NFTs, and I've got three great guys here. Number one, sitting to my right, is DaveMatherly, and he's our resident artist now. He'll actually be the one that's going to take all this material we create today, and he's going to put it into a format of 30 minutes or an hour. So it'll be a very professionally edited show. And then I have a collector, a genuine collector, and it's Michael. And Michael doesn't want to reveal anything other than his first name, which is great but he collects my gold and silver coins that I minted 40 years ago. And then we have Juan, who's really fascinated with NFTs. In fact, the background of this show is the American flag. I got this when Juan came and worked with us here at the Bitcoin Standard House for about a year. And one of the things that he brought was this from Colombia. And it's actually made by a street artisan that in Colombia. And it's made out of the Venezuelan bolivars, and it has the American flag. So I'm an American citizen, and so that struck me at home. I'm big on monetary theory and how markets work, and this is made out of some worthless currency, bolivars. And not only that, but it came from a good friend of mine who I've grown to love and know, and so it really has special meaning to me. Okay. Now he put it, I think it was at the 2019 Unconfiscatable conference. He put it for sale on an auction, and he asked me, "Oh, can you do a bid?" I said, "Sure." So I did an initial bid of $100, and it turned out I was the only bidder, but so I won. But I'm really pleased with it. I mean, I treasure this as part of my collection. I have no intention of ever selling this because it has a personal meaning in my life. I think it's more than just my life. I think it makes a statement for Bitcoin and for sound money. And so it's not just the story of Juan and I, but it's the story of the Bolivar and story of the US dollar and the story of Bitcoin. And so it's this story that makes the value to this thing, and not just that we created it and here it is. And so to me, it's not for sale. And I think you're going to hear the same thing from my friend Michael. He collects my coins, but they're not for sale, guys. And so Michael, I don't know if you were able to pull some of those up. We do want to show off some of the things that you're talking about too when we get to you. But the first one we're going to talk with is David, because he is the artist. And so he has looked into NFTs, and he has tried to say, is there anything to this? Is there any way I can monetize my artwork? And because there is a need there. We're not going to argue that there is not a need for artists to monetize their work. It's just that, is this really the avenue for it, or it's just a scam that's being promoted and actually scamming artists rather than really promoting their artwork? So go ahead and give us your view.
Okay, when I first looked into OpenSeas, and I know there's a couple of other websites that I've seen reference to, but OpenSeas was the only one I really concentrated on. The OpenSeas had the collectors that seemed to be making the most of their work were ones with large collections of copies of one another. They would have copies of the same work, but slightly different. Like a little fingerprint, a pixel would be a different color. The character would have different hair, and they were mostly just little avatars. And they were selling these for $5 and $10 a piece, I guess initially, but they would get flipped up to like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They were always making they were bringing in royalties from every single sale. So it seemed like a decent mechanism, a good idea, but it also seemed like you had to just put up a big collection of almost exact copies in order to have any throughput, So I put one image up, and then I had a bunch of questions like, well, wait a second, is this in fact tied to, how is the image tied to the NFT? How can it not be copied? And then someone just claimed that they also own another, version of it, like a 2 out of 2 rather than a 1 out of 1. And I never had those questions answered. But the chat room just seemed like a confused mess to me. I was in the chat room.
I'm happy to answer some of the basic questions about NFTs, just so we can clear that out of the way early on. And I mean, I should sort of say what my experience and background with this is. I've been in this space for, I think, about 7-8 years now, professionally 7 years. And in 2016, these NFTs started to kind of be played with on top of Bitcoin. The first project on top of Bitcoin about this was Spells of Genesis, which was a Magic the Gathering like game where you had these tokens were scarce, right? And each token was a card, and the cards had they were like it was a game, it was a card game. So it wasn't art for art's sake. It was a game that had art in it, right? And I think that's an important distinction. The first NFT, the first art piece, I mean, it's debatable right now. There's people doing research on this, but it's argued that the Rare Pepe Satoshi Nakamoto piece that's been selling and increasing value on OpenSea was the first standalone art piece with a token on it, right? The first official art for art's sake kind of NFT, right?
The Rare Pepes. Is that what you're talking about?
The Rare Pepe. This was the and if I can share a screen, I can share the.
I got one. I bought one. I got counterparty
Nice.
somewhere. I got to go find my Rare Pepe.
Oh shit! We'll have to find it. Maybe it's worth a lot of money now. So, but anyway, so I wanna see if I can share screen here. I don't know if that's doable, but
How about the Magic Gathering money? Is that still worth anything?
I don't
you can
know.
do screen share. Juan, you can do screen
You
share.
got
Right,
screen
so
share.
here you can see the Nakamoto card. This is the first Rare Pepe that was created, and
Oh, cool.
People are there's kind of an argument that this is the first NFT. Apparently there was an older one that's basically like an avatar, and apparently the first image that was associated with a token on a blockchain, or at least posted on a blockchain, was the logo, the Bitcoin logo from Bitcoin.org. Was posted on the Namecoin blockchain very early on. So anyway, there's some history being done about this, but the bottom line is an NFT, the fundamental definition of an NFT, as far as my experience working with this, because I started playing with the Rare Pepes when they came out, and I made one, and I've been playing with them now that they're kind of booming. Is basically you have a data entry on a blockchain, you have a public address and a number, and that number, everybody says like it is marketed as being associated with an image. Now the link between the image and the token, or the unit of account of this, let's say this let's just call it a shitcoin for clarification's sake, right, is it can be, that link can be done in many different ways, right? It can be as simple and as rudimentary as a website saying that this NFT is the token on the blockchain, right? And the blockchain can reference the name of the art piece and even link to the website. The blockchain can also have a hash of the image, which is what I just did with my NFT. If you read my article on JuanGalt.com, what I did was I grabbed an NFT on Counterparty, which is a Bitcoin protocol for all kinds of crypto contract stuff. And then I sent it into I created a burn address. I sent a transaction with a hash of the image that is unique to the image file as published on the Rare Pepe directory. This is kind of like the Oracle website, right? So the official file has a unique hash that can be reproduced independently from any computer. That hash I published on the blockchain to the burn address. I also published a hash to IPFS, which is a distributed storage protocol that's fairly popular. So that's also sent to the burn address. And then I sent the NFT to the burn address. And then the burn address I associated with a reminting of the NFT on the Liquid protocol, which is also on top of Bitcoin. in order to try to bridge, to basically send the Pepe from one protocol to the other protocol, right? And so this is kind of like an example of the complexity of you know, what kind of association you can build between the JPEG and the token.
You've embedded the URL or the JPEG or the GIF into the smart contract, into the NFT, so they are bound somehow?
I argue yes. I think they are bound. I can show a direct link between both protocols that associates the hash of the image, a reproducible unique hash of the GIF, the GIF file itself as stored on IPFS, which is the distributed protocol, the name of the file, right? And a burn, the sort of unique burn address that I sent it to was sent from the issuing address, the public address from which I issued the NFTs. That's the one that sent it. So I'm signing it as an author. I'm signing all of this thing from the original, sort of the genesis address of this NFT, if you will.
So the NFT does then do what it says, and the way you do it, it denotes ownership then.
Well, I wouldn't argue that it denotes ownership. In fact, the GIF itself is not stored on the blockchain, and this is for efficiency sake. Like the GIF file, I think probably like a couple of megabytes. You don't want to store that on the blockchain. But I wouldn't even argue that it stores ownership. I actually haven't really put any thought into what does it mean to own art anyway.
So basically, what are you possessing with an NFT?
That's a really good question, and I think it actually illuminates the reality of the market. So with these NFTs, the images are public. They are stored by Google, and they're just general storage of images, right? I have a copy of every rare Pepe in existence. I downloaded the whole website. It took me about 4 hours. I'm going to keep it and I'm going to republish it. I'm going to make sure that collection stays alive. I have a private collection of JPEGs, some of which I own the NFT to, some of which I don't. And I'm sure other people have copies of it, right? The Mona Lisa, right? We've all seen the Mona Lisa, but how many people have seen the real Mona Lisa, the one in person, right? So what does it mean to control an image, right? I can destroy the JPEG on my computer. I have a certain amount of control over that. I also have a certain amount of control over the token associated with my art, right? Or even the ones that I buy. If I buy the NFT to a token, I can destroy that token, and I am objectively destroying something that's scarce, right? The logic of the rare Pepe contracts is that you can't issue more supply. This isn't the case with all NFTs, just the rare Pepes. And so, so there is a certain amount of control of both the NFT token and the JPEGs, but there's very limited control of JPEGs, because even if I destroy it on my end, there might be 1 million copies on the other side. And so what does it mean to control a JPEG? It might not be that meaningful.
So when it's public and anyone can view the image, what do you own when you own the NFT? I mean, okay, you have the right, I guess, to put it on your phone. You can do a few things with it. As far as I read, and I don't know if this is true or not, that when you own the NFT, you don't even have copyright. You don't have any copyright rights at all, you know, to use it for commercial transactions, advertisements, anything.
The default, like if you do, as an artist, if you do not assign specific explicit rights to the ownership of an NFT token, then you are in whatever the default jurisdictional assumptions are. And the default jurisdictional assumptions seem to be something like nobody can do anything about the fact that you have a copy of the image on your computer. That fight has been lost, right? That was the privacy wars that happened against Pirate Bay and all that stuff in the 90s and 2000s, right? So now nobody can do anything about that. We've accepted that. However, if you're going to print the graphic and sell it as merchandise,
right,
now we're entering new territory. And there's a guy that's actually buying up copyright to various Pepes and has had a public conflict with another guy that's printing the Pepes and selling them, right? And they are basically routing around each other because the guy that's printing them is avoiding the Pepes that this guy has bought up in copyright, right? Because he's afraid of getting sued for I don't know, some sort of copyright violation, right?
Well, and I don't think it's clear at all whether this ownership has to be explicit or if it's implied. That literally has to be a legal court decision where and that's what it'll center around. I said, when you do this, is it now implicit that you get the ownership? Well, I guess it depends upon who you're buying it from. And
what does that even mean? Like, let's say I said that you have the right you have copyrights over my image, but I have the supply of my NFT is 160, I think right now, or something like that, 150. There's 150 tokens. That means that I can only sell the copyright to 150 people. And does that mean that they can all print and sell their own merch with the image, right? Or can one token owner sue another token owner? No, because they all have copyright. So I don't really know. I'm an amateur artist. I don't understand copyright law particularly well. So, and I think a lot of NFT artists, well, I don't know, a lot of rare paper artists certainly didn't seem to worry too much about that. But anyway,
I want to go into the real value of collector's pieces, because the whole thing is that and it's a reflection of Bitcoin, but I'm actually considering doing a website called Bitcoin Does Not Fix This, because there's everything Bitcoiners tend to think everything is fixed by Bitcoin. It doesn't fix everything, guys. It just doesn't. There's a lot of things it doesn't fix, and that's really up to human action. It's Bitcoin is this objective thing, but it's really up to us how we apply it. The beauty of the gold coinage is there's an intrinsic value. And so can you go into that a little bit? What is the difference? Why is collecting gold standard coins so unique and different from collecting an NFT? I know that you can answer that question, Michael.
Okay. Well,
you don't need to understand NFTs
absolutely.
To show what a collector, why a collector's collection becomes valuable.
Well, let me just start here, and I won't take very long. So I understand, and it took me a long time to figure out what HODL meant, honestly. I didn't know it. I had to look it up. Okay. So, but it seems to me there is HODLing, but it seems to me that the cryptocurrency and NTF subcategory is where a lot of hot money is. It's just money, and it's not the NFTs and the HODLing is part of it. Collecting NFTs and HODLing is part of it, but there's a lot of quick profit, get in, get out. It's hot, it's going up fast. I'm gonna flipping in it. That's not collecting. Okay, flipping is not collecting, right? Two totally different things. One is for an investment, short term or longer term, and the other is because it means something to you in some way, whether it's beautiful or whether the subject matter means something to you. It's not something that you're going to flip for a few dollars. So that's the difference. So a lot of what I see, I don't own any NFTs. I'm not that familiar with the market. I'm not that familiar with HODLing either. But the fact, it seems to me that this is not, a lot of what's going on is just short-term, to seek short-term profits. That's not what collecting is by definition. Definition of collecting is to purchase something that you want to own because it means something to you in some way. So, and for me, and the fact is too, collecting gold coins is like collecting art, because whoever's Kandinsky, he bought cloth canvases and he added paint to them, and his ideas, his concepts, and the value comes from not from the canvas itself, but from what's been put on the canvas. The canvas is purchased for $1. All the value is derived from what was put on that virtually worthless canvas. Yeah. So I'll just say this, that for me, as far as collecting, it's important that it's a matter of owning the physical item, right? And even here for like this, for example, I mean, I put this up already, but I mean, did you recognize this? This is your 5-ounce gold, von Mises.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful piece, guys.
So-
And you know what? I know that the Mises Institute bought some of these, and they either destroyed it. This is the first one.
this
I
still
can't even
comes-
find it.
this still
You're the
comes
first.
in
I
that
want to get
wood-
a picture of this because it's
Look,
not
look
anywhere.
at the wood case it still comes in. I mean, to find it like this in this condition with the Gold Standard Corporation and saying that, you know, underneath in this wood frame,
And
this is, I've never
brings-
seen this in all
And
my
it
years.
brings tears to my eyes.
Also, how
You
many?
don't know the amount of work that went into that.
To get off the track, but I just want to mention, right, so that's where it's similar to attempting to put the you know, put the URL, put it instead of in a URL, whoever, to put it into in on the NTF, on the blockchain. It's very expensive. It's expensive to put that digital art on the blockchain, and it's expensive to make gold.
And it
Whereas,
gets
you know, a
lost.
painting-
Just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin gets lost. These got lost. There aren't, we don't know how many are out there. There
Right.
aren't very
These get-
many.
And what
Nail it down.
happens is dealers, people bring these in, you know what? The husband's died,
Died,
and the wife's 80 years
need
old.
the
She
money.
doesn't know what to do with it. She brings it to a We Buy Gold store, a pawn shop or something like that. And what's gonna happen is they see this. You know,
Yeah.
they see an old US coin and they know what it is and they know the value of it. And they're gonna rip the old lady off and they're gonna sell it for a lot of money. But for this, as they don't know what it is, they're gonna destroy this.
Yep.
There's a guy gonna come around with scrap metal. They're gonna give him all the old earrings, all the old cufflinks, gold cufflinks, and these, and they're gonna melt it for scrap.
When I was going broke and my business was going under, I literally had to take it into the local smelter to keep my business going, you know, to keep
Right.
tubes. And so I understand how that works. And one of the stories that I know you want to tell is basically the value, we're going to call, I hate the word intrinsic because I think all value is imputed, but the value of the gold in relationship to the collectible. And that's what's made one of the reasons that you found collecting gold standard pieces is it's almost a risk-free way of owning gold and silver. Do you want to explain that to people?
Well, you know, there's a couple of, my mind goes several different directions with this, but you know, what I just find as far as collecting gold, I collect gold. I don't collect silver physical silver, because it takes up too much space. Right. You know, I mean, you can get 10 grand
And gold,
and
silver,
something this big to hold that in silver. You're gonna need a chiropractor
Stack
for
of
trying
bars.
to carry it around.
and silver's dirty and gold's
Right,
clean. That's
right,
the
and
other
it
reason.
tarnishes and everything else. But this is the point for me, and I mentioned this earlier. An artist that paints on canvas, his material cost is zero or very little. Some paint, a brush, and a canvas. Well, and I don't know for a fact, but so all the value is derived from what's on that virtually worthless canvas. Okay, and Juan, you can help me here. As far as an NFT or a digital piece of art, it seems to me the material cost, the input cost to create that digital art is probably still very, very low. So that all the value is purely derived from the image itself, virtually none of it is in what it costs to produce that GIF or whatever it is. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. So, yeah, the cost of producing an NFT issuance on Counterparty, for example, is 0.5 Counterparty units, which goes for about $10 right now for
Right.
half a Counterparty token. And then that's pretty much it. On Ethereum, it costs about $500 to issue an NFT right now, funny enough, because the fees are so high, because the chain is so bloated.
Right.
And so you have the basic, very small cost of minting, and then you
the
have
minting is
the
negligible, right?
negligible.
Wait,
And so we're only
it costs
really talking
$500
about-
for the $500. What am I getting again?
You're paying $500 for the fees of issuing an NFT contract on Ethereum.
Wow.
For mint.
The ether, you have to
Yeah,
change it
because the
to
fees are just
Ether.
stupid right now.
Wrapped
But it's
ether.
it's
What
fluctuating
did it
value, like-
cost for an annex grade? What did you pay? I know you just did.
Okay, but wait, I just want to step back for one second. But the actual cost of the artist creating the image is virtually nothing, correct?
labor,
Okay,
labor.
so all the value, so whether it's a painting or a digital piece of art, your input costs are, the value is not derived anything by your input cost, but purely by
From the time you spend on it, really.
from the premium, what the people view the value as. Okay.
Well, the artistic, I mean, an artist takes a long time to kind of get
Oh, so his
confidence,
time, right.
His time,
Labor,
with
labor,
experience,
right, his time.
yeah, labor.
Skill and
Okay.
labor, labor and
Well,
skill. Mhm.
But with this, right, with the gold coin, just the canvas itself has a lot of value, right? If this had nothing on it, right, it was just a blank piece of gold, a blob of gold, it would be worth nearly $10,000. Now you put, so the canvas itself has tremendous value.
But now you could.
And the
Now,
story,
so the
and the
bottom line is, if
story.
you can find limited artwork, if you can find artwork that's extremely limited in its availability or the number made, and pay literally the price of the canvas, the
Mhm.
value of the canvas, well, then you've got something, don't you? That's where Conrad just mentioned, no brainer. How can this, where there is no downside, because if you can buy something that's extremely rare and simply because it's not well known, just for the price of the material, which this 5 ounces of gold is just the material, you're winning. Of course, the spot price of gold could fall, right? I mean, so there, the value of the canvas will vary, but gold's really not that volatile. It's been within, 5%, for the last several years now. It's not moving that much. So this is like, what I call these are art on a gold canvas, right? My point being that when you buy a painting or when you buy digital art through an NTF, you're buying, the value is purely derived from what people perceive as the value of the artwork. Whereas if you buy a gold piece of jewelry or a gold coin, just the material itself has, if you want to use the word, intrinsic value. So if you can buy something that's rare and just pay the value of the canvas, this is a no-brainer. And that's why, for me, that's why I started buying the Cold Standard Corporation pieces, because I saw and again, this is like being an buying the right metals and coins are like being an art critic, right? I have to go, do the research. How many of these were made? Just like, potential, like in, a Van Gogh Haystack series, right? Where he made a series of maybe 12, 15 or 20 different versions, slightly different version of Haystacks. So how many were made? Does it appeal to me? The Gold Standard Corporation's Conrad's pieces had very famous economists on them, very well tastefully done. The finishes are excellent. It also has very, important slogans on them. For example, I don't know if you can see this piece, right? This piece says, let's see. Oh, you can't really see that. But on top it says, sound money means gold. Okay, that meant something to me. And on the back, and I'll tell you if you're married or you're in a relationship, these are words, it's on the back of the coin, that would mean something to anyone too. It says, for integrity, there is no substitute. It's in every, it cuts through every aspect of life, your business relationships, your personal relationships. So what is my point? This is what appealed to me. And I got these beautiful slogans that I live by for the price of the canvas. right? That's like buying your NFT. Imagine buying your NFT for the price, the value of what it, what?
Minting it, yeah. Let's
The-
just say of minting
nothing,
the coin
nothing.
itself.
It would be on digital art. It would be,
Yeah.
you know, very little. So, and that's not what's going on.
And there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. It doesn't happen because it's not magic. You know, it's really not. And that's why I wanted, because it almost appears to be magic as your articles show, you know, and so I'm asking, Juan, is this magic? Is this really anything? I mean, I think we've got the right perspective, but what we're really trying to do is make sure people have the right perspective and not have the wrong perspective on this thing. You know, I don't want people going into this thing. If you think you're going to make a fortune, oh, good, we got BitcoinMechanic on this thing. But if you think you're going to go into the NFTs and make a fortune, it's not going to be easy.
Well, let me tell you, people are making fortunes in NFTs, but it is very, very speculative, risky, highly liquid, and the market will become absolutely saturated. I have no doubt about this. Every influencer in the world that's relatively ambitious, hungry, and greedy is going to make an NFT and is going to push it if the price to make an NFT is low enough. And because it's an instant way to monetize their audience. And you're not pretending that you're saving the world. You're just attaching it to a piece of art. And as an artist, they can produce an infinite, well, not an infinite, they can produce a lot of art. And so this is going to change the relation between influencers and their audience. And particularly more artistic ones. I don't know if we'll ever get to Instagram. We might see Instagram sort of influencers doing it at some point. I don't know, but I have no doubt that every shitcoin that can exist will exist and will be pushed until exhaustion.
Oh, I think that the NFT is going to be the biggest shitcoin market to come that's ever seen. And it's all going to be, it's going to be
so, yeah.
So phony, and people are going to get burnt on it so badly. And yet there are the Googles in the world that you can invest in, and there's a real thing to it. So BitcoinMechanic, thanks for coming in, man. Yeah, give us your 2 cents. I'm so glad that you've been watching us, because this is a subject that needs to be addressed. I didn't realize it was as hot as it is, but it is.
NFTs, yeah. Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm glad to drop in. NFTs we're talking about NFTs, right?
Yes.
I mean, NFTs don't philosophically do anything that wasn't already possible long before the invention of Bitcoin. So the primary perspective people have is one that's in which they've been misled into believing that somehow there's there's some sort of inalienable property right that can be afforded to intellectual property, thanks to it being recorded in a public ledger, which is just so absurd, because there's no difference to if it was done privately. And that is how it would always be done in the past, because the only interested parties, when there's a contract in place that says the intellectual property, I'm giving it to you. You keep a copy of the contract, they keep a copy of the contract. If that intellectual property gets violated, then there's a court case, or there's something that has to happen in the real world, because the contract can't magically enforce it. And that's the same as a blockchain. A blockchain can't magically enforce ownership or property rights of something external to the chain. So Bitcoin can enforce ownership of Bitcoin. It says you have to have the right private keys, but it can't enforce anything else that's in the Bitcoin blockchain. So those people that did stuff like upload their wedding vows into Bitcoin's blockchain, that's all great, but they can still get divorced. Bitcoin isn't going to come to life and stop them from getting divorced. And this is the whole thing, basically. If we want to be pie in the sky and open-minded about it, then there is some interesting implications to having the transfer of ownership of intellectual property move around publicly. That is somewhat new, but it's very, very unremarkable, the ramifications for doing that, in my opinion. And it's not really the reason people are diving into this thing. They're either diving into it because they don't understand that it's not quite the revolution they think it is, or they're just being scammed. Or sorry, they are the scammer and they're pretending there's some sort of new thing here when there really just isn't. I mean, to me, it's mainly reminiscent of rare items in video games. I think JuanGalt, I think we talked about this back in Mexico. Like this idea that you can have a rare item in a video game, and it's rare because the makers of the video game aren't going to make any more of that item, and you can trade it inside the marketplace inside the video game for maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in real terms. But the only difference with that and an NFT is it's in a private ledger, which belongs to the video game company, rather than a public ledger, which is something like Ethereum's blockchain. So this kind of just already existed in the first place, right? So, I mean, it's so hard to see it as something new.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say about that, and I'm not a pie in the sky NFT guy. I've always, when I got into this back in 2016, we were just kind of playing. These things were worth nothing. I never had any expectation of making any money with this. I just enjoyed the art, and the tokenization of it was an interesting game. There was a game being developed for Rare Pepe. The lead developer of it died, and so we don't know if that's going to get developed by his brother or whatever. But there was some general intent to create some kind of game around the NFT that I made. But I mean, let me just kind of address a few of those points, and we can go from there. So first of all, a video game developer would give a much more sort of realizable value to a digital asset, because you can actually use it in a video game. But a video game developer is a centralized ledger that can issue or dilute the supply, and they often do in video games. And there's been big upsets culturally about this. I think there is some joke about Vitalik Buterin inventing Ethereum because the developers of World of Warcraft inflated the supply of one of his like armor pieces, right? And like it lost a bunch of value, right? Like this is a joke going around back in the day, right? And so the fact that you can put it on top of Bitcoin or on top of a ledger that is at least sufficiently decentralized, maybe to not get, broken, right? And I mean, I only deal in Bitcoin native Pepes or NFTs, right? Then it's kind of like interesting, right? But I don't know if I think that's also debatable. My counter argument to that would be like, well, how secure is the counterparty protocol itself? Might not be as secure as Bitcoin, right? So anyway, there's a debate there. Another aspect of it is the fact that you can cryptographically sign messages with an address that has the token at the time. So you can create time-stamped proofs of ownership or proofs of ownership at a time of a particular token. And that can be kind of like a ticket or a certificate that gives you access to private environments, which can be a VIP access at a conference, a special Telegram group, bonus content, which you may or may not be able to like hide from the web. But I think that at the end of the day, there's two fundamental reasons people buy NFTs. Reason one, they like the art and they can afford it. But that doesn't address it. I think the reason two is that there is this psychological experience that happens when you buy an NFT that is so that we have as humans this trinket, this impulse to collect trinkets, right? And some people maybe more than others, right? I'm like that. If I see, like, look at my coffee mug, right? This coffee mug has the sparkly thing from that magic movie. Gosh, Harry Potter, right? I love this coffee mug. I genuinely am terrified of breaking this coffee mug. Absolutely adore it. I wouldn't sell it. I would never sell this coffee mug, right? I'll have it until it dies, until it's destroyed, right? It cost me $5. I love it. I have a lot of things like that. I love collecting things. There's the feeling that I have of owning or like having a thing, an NFT, is different than the ones, like I have a copy of a bunch of NFT JPEGs that I don't own the token to. I have a different feeling with the NFTs. What does that feeling map to in reality? That's a question that I think is a legal question, and it's going to take probably a decade to be addressed at all, right? Or even like reasonably addressed because of these copyright battles that are probably going to come from this NFT marketplace. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I think there's some interesting stuff technologically that can be done because you have this public ledger with provable scarcity, and you can sign messages, right?
Yeah.
There's this story about Picasso, I think it was, or some other artist probably in Europe. He was driving a car, wrecked some other guy's car, right? And obviously they had a dispute. Oh my God, you destroyed my car. And the artist just went and like signed the car that he wrecked, right? And suddenly it became worth, you know, many times the value of the car itself, right? And so there is something to signatures, right? And then they inflated the market of signatures, and then the market collapsed, right? And then the bubbles. Anyway,
let me jump in quickly there, because I don't discount sentimentality or apparent irrational valuing of something, because if you had a lucky quarter and it was in your pocket one day and you nearly got hit by a car and you noticed it, and then a week later you just avoided getting hit by a meteorite and the same quarter was in your pocket, yeah, you can value that, and you destroy the fungibility of it because it's not worth a quarter to you, it's worth life to you, right? I'm not discounting sentimentality at all, and I think humans have the right to just hold on to things that are very, like, even if I'm not into mocking the NFT guys with these really deliberately low resolution stupid pictures that sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm not trying to mock them for that. That's fair enough. I just don't want anyone to have the wrong impression about the enforceability of their property right, because the thing can be, first off, we're being overly generous by saying let's assume it's all on an immutable Bitcoin blockchain, as opposed to like Ethereum, which is not even immutable in the first place, right? But let's grant them that and say NFTs are being done on an immutable ledger. Even then, just the terms of the contract being violated by the initial distributor of the artwork, you don't really have any recourse. You can demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that I owned this thing at a previous time than this latest issuing of a new NFT based on the same token, but it's still just a court case. It's still going to have to be dealt with in the real world, and that is not functionally zero difference to if I buy the copyright to some Beatles record and I get an email saying, yes, you are now the owner of this, and then they go and sell it to someone else afterwards. It still has to be dealt with in court. And it doesn't matter whether it's a private email or contract or if it's in a public ledger. The only thing is this user interface changes where I can then sell it on again myself using this new interface of a blockchain and a transaction, rather than have to draw up a contract in Meets.
BitcoinMechanic. I'm going to try and keep this simple. I don't know if you heard this part that I addressed earlier. Possession is 99% of the law.
Mm-hmm.
I have possession of this Cassicius. Okay, it actually has an annex grading on it. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Can you zoom in?
Hold it to the right a little bit.
This way?
There you go. Yeah.
That one. Okay. And can you zoom in on just me? And so basically, I own this. Now, if this was somebody broke in and stole my token. Now this is 1 Bitcoin is on here. Okay. And it's brass. It's not it's a brass token. They spent a lot of money to develop this thing, but they did it on a very poor canvas, brass canvas, not a well struck. I did the opposite. I did use the very highest quality canvas and did not we actually, Michael actually sent in one of my coins. He got an MS69, which is incredible.
Proof 69, PF.
Yes, unbelievable. Yeah. And because of the quality, and I knew that because I did a lot of shopping when I did these things. But now let's just assume that this gets stolen and my Cassicius is gone, and all I have left is this case. And my view is that these NFTs are really no more than a case. It may add value to this, but I'm not even sure if you have this. I'm almost thinking that the NFT is you're just selling a case without anything there. Whereas here I have a physical piece.
Well, they're proud of that, right? Someone proudly today said, we've destroyed the diamond that this NFT is based on, just to prove the concept that the NFT can remain valuable without the...
But this hasn't been destroyed. Somebody else has the real thing.
There's Bitcoin. There's actual Bitcoins in there.
Right. But I paid 2.5 Bitcoin to buy this. Now,
and how much Bitcoin is in there?
So 1 Bitcoin. So I paid
right.
In 2013, Bitcoin was $200. I paid $500 for it. Now,
Right.
so I paid a 250% premium to buy this thing.
Mhm.
I would right now, based on the marketplace, I would have been better off just to keep the 2.5 Bitcoin. But I value this. If I try, there's no market in these or very little, like Tone tried to sell one. You're not going to get 2.5 times. I'm not going to get $125,000 for this. I might get a Bitcoin plus 10 or 20%, but for me to get 2 or 3 times the Bitcoin value, it will take time. It will probably take a generation at least. In other words, it's not just a factor of the artwork, but it's the factor of a time factor. The gold standard coins are now 40 years old. Many of them have been melted down. They're becoming rarer and rarer, just as Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
And the value, for example, the value of a Bitcoin may be worth more in dollars in Mexico than they are in the United States, but it's still the same Bitcoin. That's a minor part of the value. The main part of the value of this Cassicius is not the Cassicius, it's not the grading, it's the Bitcoin. Now, over time, will that change? I think so, but there's no guarantee it will. But for me to have realized the same gain, this would have to be worth $125,000 now, and it's not.
Well, there's a lot there, and I don't. I agree with you, and I agree that Peter Schiff is wrong, as he usually is. But one like final thing maybe to add on to this discussion is just this isn't my my idea, by the way. I read this and it was a perfect analogy. Do you remember those companies that you used to be able to go and buy a star and have it named after you? There were these companies that would sell them, and you could, for your wife, for your anniversary, you could call it like the Teresa star or something like that. And a big part of the value of it was that the customers would believe that it would be used in the scientific community, the name you would give it. In reality, it wasn't, but part of what gave it the value for the customers was that belief. Not that it was a true belief, but it's still a part of it. Like, so the fact that you would come and pay money for something to have this feeling come back to you, like, again, it's all part of like the subjective nature of value, and it's legitimate to some extent. But this is such a perfect analogy for NFTs. Just to make the caveat, like, I don't want to come across as a crazy snob on this stuff, because you're just using it as half the time rare vinyl is literally just a store of value, and it's not being used for its musical content at all. But we know all about this. This is part of the fiat standard, is that everything costs more than it should because we don't have a functional money that operates as sound money, and that gives us the obvious tool you'd use to store your value for the future. So everything else costs more because it has to, like, stocks and shares aren't just stocks and shares, they're stores of value, and houses aren't just houses, they're stores of value. So everything becomes a store of value that shouldn't be. Like, I don't think that would, like, Bitcoin eliminates all that, but it does mean that you don't use things like that are obviously for not the purpose of store of value as a store of value. But music and fine art, they'll always kind of have that topic, I think. People, I think, or that function rather, I think that's just something that's always going to be a part. If you've got an original copy of an old valuable record, you're going to be protective over it. You're going to not want to play it unless it's a very, very special occasion or something. Right. And like Goat said with fine wine, it's just, it's one of those things.
It took up a whole room in my house though. So it created some space in the end when I just listened to I reverted to digital.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about the nature of value and how individuals value stuff and how we collectively value stuff. I mean, I think you play Peter Schiff's game when you look into rational use cases for things as somehow an aspect of it. And if anything, NFTs, if they do one thing I really like, is that they expose how irrational the value of things can be. And fair enough.
So let me say a couple of things. So first of all, I think if we are into Austrian economics and believe that value is subjective and it's based on supply and demand, then that means that there is no objective way to measure the value of anything, including NFTs, which is which is I think is important to recognize, because art is a very strange thing that I definitely want to talk, and I want to ask Dave about it, but we'll talk about it in a second, right? The other thing is that is a separate issue. The objective or non-objective valuation of art or NFTs or anything else is separate from the morality or ethical integrity of the trade itself, right? So you can fraudulently sell something that to somebody despite of the inherent value or the actual market value of the thing that you're selling, right? So like you can people that are like, I would never say that buying NFTs is a good investment or even necessarily a profitable or likely profitable speculation. I think it is terribly risky. I only buy NFTs at very low prices that I personally speculate on, and I'll buy 2 at a time if I can, because I'm going to keep one. I'm going to flip one, right?
Good strategy. I like that.
Well, that's exactly what
how I
I do with the physical objects.
Yeah, I think it's metaphysical at some level. I think really like if there's a JPEG that's a super 8-bit awful JPEG that's going around and it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, the NFT of it, and you buy it because you're like, whatever, I just want to own this thing. It's funny, and everyone you tell you own it, every time you tell someone I own this thing, every response is always, so what? Who cares? Like, but that is exactly the same response that I could have when I'm like, oh, I've got Donna Summer's I Feel Love, like the first pressing of it. Like a million people would look at me and go, so what? Like most people would look at vinyl the way Michael looks at it, which is a fair enough way to look at it. So again, people are just going to go, so what? So,
can you see,
I would have gladly paid it.
But my point is, to round off, it's not just metaphysical. There is something usually tying it back to it, just like how Bitcoin is away in the sky, in the stars, right? But the energy usage it has ties it back using the laws of physics to reality somehow. It's still bound by the universe. It's not just completely off in its own imaginary world. Like the energy consumption is very real, right? So even with things like gold, there's energy, there's something there that ties it to reality. NFTs aren't actually tied to reality in any way. So that when people go, so what that you own the NFT of that, it actually becomes a point where they have more of a point, I think, than in other circumstances where you own like a physical piece of vinyl or precious metals or something like that. I think the so what is going to be so insurmountably difficult a question to answer that people spending $100,000 on an NFT in today's world are literally going to feel like this was such a stupid bandwagon to jump on. I can't believe I fell for this. There's nothing.
I agree with you completely.
Like, I think it's just
pretty wild. Some really ridiculous numbers.
Because that's where I am. So what? I'm so what? So what? I can just go view this anywhere. I don't need to own it. If I can enjoy it, I don't need to own it.
Well, and then what you find out too is that you have for example, when I met Michael, I would have gladly paid, if he'd have said, oh, I want, double the price of gold for the gold pieces, I'd have paid it because I was collecting them. I didn't care. That wasn't my primary motive.
I'll get you next time.
Platinum, I'm not interested in. Gold and silver. One of the biggest mistakes I made was actually going from gold into silver and then silver into platinum. I should have just stayed with gold and I would have never gotten into trouble. But that's why I'm a Bitcoin only belieber, I think. But
would you say gold is the Bitcoin of precious metals?
It really is. Yeah, there's nothing. There really is nothing that compares to the gold, and it is the Bitcoin of precious metals. So
is platinum a shitcoin, or is it like a reasonable?
Platinum, can I tell you what? Platinum, gold. The simple fact is this: that silver and platinum are industrial metals. There are industrial metals that are worth a fortune. Rhodium, palladium, that's fine. But you're talking about a monetary metal. There's only one. There's only one. It's very simple. It's very simple because all the central banks and the treasuries of the world, from the biggest to the smallest, from the United States down to little Greece, virtually everyone has gold reserves. The monetary authorities of the world own gold. They don't own bicycles, they don't own thimbles, they don't own pizzas, and they don't own silver. They own gold. They own it
Yeah,
for
They
a
don't own
reason.
NFTs.
There,
They own it for a reason. Whatever that reason is, they're not selling it. They're only buying more. So when the
And-
monetary authorities of the world are actively buying gold and
Right.
only gold, you better own some physical gold.
I
End
don't.
of story. You don't need to know anything else.
I can't. Are you advising me to buy gold? Because I can't bring myself to do it. I'm such a Bitcoin bug. I just can't. Like,
You
I'm
know-
about to leave Canada, and I don't
Okay.
want to be like carrying
Okay.
gold across
Let
the
me
border.
just
You have the
Let me
VAT
just say
tax,
one
too.
thing, okay? I'm just gonna make a very simple premise, okay? It's a very simple argument, very short. So everyone has a balance sheet, right? You can say, my assets are my house, my bank account, 50 grand, but I have 100 grand in credit card debt. Well, your balance sheet's way out of whack, right? Your debts are far exceed your assets, right? But all of a sudden, you own something. You own something, a painting on the wall. Maybe it's one of your pieces of vinyl that all of a sudden, if it increases in value enough, your balance sheet's repaired because that asset has now risen in value to a level that either meets or exceeds your liabilities. Your credit rating is completely set. Every country in the world, the United States especially, 20 trillion in debt. Their asset side of the balance sheet is dwarfed by the liability side, the debt side. But they all own one thing that if it reaches a high enough price, takes them out of debt, makes their balance sheet whole. They own one thing. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but even some of the biggest asset managers of the world have written articles, not recently. You know what? There's two ways to repair your balance sheet. One is to pare down your liabilities, cut spending, cut defense, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, get the debt side down, or magically have the asset side of your balance sheet rise. Over one weekend, they revalue gold to $20,000 an ounce. All the gold in Fort Knox times $20,000 an ounce offsets the 20 trillion in debt. And the United States balance sheet is repaired. In fact, the world's balance sheet is repaired. Not just the world's balance sheet, because anyone who has $10,000 in credit card debt and has a gold chain, now their balance sheet is repaired.
Yeah,
Everyone's balance sheet is repaired.
I understand.
By
this, and it's
revaluation
very
of gold.
interesting. There's one, but are you not? Is this not glorification of something that is essentially an inflation hedge? Because all this is an artifact of the fact that all the debt is priced in an inflationary asset that suddenly overnight would reflect its true value, while everything else, like if you go back to 1900 and look at like the price of a sandwich or gas or anything, and you price it in gold, and then you do it today, nothing really moves that much. Like everything kind of sits around the same, if I believe, right?
Well, I'll tell you something interesting, and this is theoretical. If your credit is repaired because your balance sheet is repaired, your credit is repaired. So if you're a country that has fiat currency, if your balance sheet is repaired, then your currency, one could argue, could be repaired, is repaired. So therefore, you could find the value, the price of all those other things besides gold have not gone up in price. In fact, they could stay the same or even fall. Why? Because the credit of the underlying currency is repaired. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying it's as plausible as saying that everything's going to go up in price in fiat currency terms if gold goes up.
Yeah, what you're describing is already the phenomena of what happens in Bitcoin. Because what you just described has happened to me countless times.
It has. Absolutely.
And because and my example is I started with $1,000 in debt that I bought on an ACH in 2013 and to buy 10 Bitcoin. And I've been able to play that. Now my hodl is much smaller than it was at one time. I mean, yeah, I should have held a hodl if that's what I'm doing. but I'm also living a life. I live and I die, and I have rent. I have a family to take care of. So Bitcoin is a tool, but it's already monetized me. It took me out of debt. It
I
brought
don't
me
disagree.
assets. Huh?
It's one in the marketplace, right? But it's one in the marketplace. But what I'm saying is as far as I'm concerned, the only out for treasuries and central banks is going to be a revaluation of the only asset that they own.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's not gold or Bitcoin.
No.
Right? It's both.
And that's what I've been arguing all along. I think Saifedean acknowledges it in the theory. He said, the only real threat to Bitcoin is gold, which I agree completely with. The only real threat to Bitcoin is if we change the idea so that governments now want to offer sound money, which fits hand in glove with that's why I don't look at Bitcoin as being a world reserve currency, because we're not a government. We are we should be proud we're decentralized. What the function of Bitcoin is, it keeps governments honest, that we can actually restore sound money, and it's going to act as a governor, that rather than competing to be inflationary currencies, we can actually have governments that are competing to offer the most sound money. Wow, what a fundamental, what do they call that? Paradigm. They call paradigm. Yeah. The new paradigm. And this is the paradigm that has to shift. And that paradigm, but it has to shift first in the hearts and mind of mankind. We can't be, right now, the NFT paradigm is a reflection of the old ways. It's
I have to address this now, because so this is the thing that I've been talking about. Dave, as an artist, I consider myself an artist, or at least I've been an artist at various times. Why do people buy art? What is it about art that makes people pay money for it? And I'm gonna give you my answer, and then I'm curious what you think.
Right.
The reason people buy art is because of the way art makes them feel.
Right. It's your enjoyment of the piece, whether it's music or it's a painting or whatever. Yeah. And animated GIFs, some of those can be incredibly detailed and really nicely designed. And I've seen some amazing animated GIFs that just blew my mind. And I was thinking those made great NFTs because they're really enjoyable. If it matters to you, it matters to you to own it.
It is cultural. It is like, there's pieces of art in the rare pepes that I don't understand, and there's pieces that speak very closely to me because of where I was and what I was interested in at the time.
Cool.
And I wanted to show you guys one, but two of the people in the chat walk away, so I'm just gonna hold off on on showing you guys a pepe that I think would be meaningful to them. But yeah, I think that's the key thing, is that people, the feeling is what you're selling.
Right.
That's it. Now, if you use deception in order to sell the feeling, then we have fraud, right? Or we have a scam at the least, right?
But if somebody can feel, if somebody can feel the way you felt when you first saw it or when you first experienced it, that's what you're selling. It's like sort of a shared appreciation in the experience.
It's also a sense of protection, right? Like, this thing's amazing, I want to keep it safe. That might be part of it.
Certainly.
Sure. It's love of it. It's you want to protect it. Yeah. So BitcoinMechanic, can you see this image I just put on the screen?
Yeah.
So this is a rare pepe that I bought like 50 of them. It was really cheap. But you recognize this, right? Is this meaningful to you?
Yeah, it's the old Reddit wizard meme, like magic internet money image. And it's been, I don't know this version of it with Pepe and all that stuff. I don't know that subreddit either, but yeah, I know roughly I know some of the memes we've got here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this is obviously like a fork of the original one. The original one is this, but it was for Bitcoin, right? So I think it's like magic internet money Bitcoin.
Now that's an asking price. That's not a bid price, correct?
So this is the original piece.
Yeah.
This is the original piece.
And I've seen this on coffee mugs and hats and stuff.
Yeah. This is the original piece.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, but I mean, when you say the original.
Well, I don't know how original it is. Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. Okay, can you guys see it? I don't know if what you guys are seeing, but okay.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
So anyway, I mean, I just as an experiment, I would like to gift all of you guys 1 unit of this. It's 11,000 total supply. Yeah, it costs about $3. I would like to give you guys one if you want one, because I'd be curious to hear how you feel about it after you have it in a Bitcoin wallet.
How do you what is
do you
it?
do
Like,
it?
yeah, is
Yeah,
it running
so
on
you go
Liquid
to-
or something?
No, this is on top of the counterparty protocol, which is basically a Bitcoin sidechain. It's an operator in Bitcoin sidechain.
Okay.
It's an ancient protocol. It precedes Ethereum. It basically is one of the original counterparty protocols. So you can go to rarepepewallet.com. You can create a wallet. This is a similar structure as blockchain.info. This is a non-custodial client-side web wallet, or client-side wallet anyway. And then you can get an address, and if you send me an address, I will send you this. I'll send you guys this Pepe.
Thank you.
And it should go along.
That sounds
All
like
right.
fun.
And we own 11,111th of it.
One of 11, 11,111.
Two ways of looking at it. All right.
But we take
How do you cut the pizza?
yeah, we take comfort in the fact that there will never be an 11,112th.
Exactly.
That's right.
Probably. They're
right.
probably.
It actually doesn't sound like
We
that
don't know
many.
how secure a counterparty is. So we'll
It
see.
doesn't sound like that many. 11,000. It doesn't.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you think about how many dumb people there are out there, I mean, that are gonna FOMO into all kinds of things.
Oh
and we'll be-
man, no,
watching them.
come on! You're becoming a regular. You're becoming a shitcoiner connoisseur.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying that we should sell it to them, but my
You're
expectations
giving it away.
are very
It's
low,
kinda-
man. I
Okay.
have very low expectations.
You
People
sound
are gonna
like
shit-talk-
Roger
listen,
Ver. You're
No,
giving
no,
away.
no.
It's like
Like-
my
Whoa,
Bitcoin
that's
cash.
below the belt. That's below the belt.
Yeah, that's hurtful.
You can't go around saying people are like Roger.
Go around calling people Roger Ver. How dare you? No, listen, my expectation of the next 30, 40 years is that every shitcoin that can exist, will be made, pushed, marketed, scammed, and sold until the bottom is found.
Hey,
And we won't
Right.
stop having to deal with shitcoins
I
until
disagree.
our children have 40, 50 years of history behind them of people getting wrecked in Ponzi schemes, and it is personal to them.
No,
It
no,
is
no.
personal to them. That I don't think we're gonna if people have to understand economics for us to succeed, we are fucked. They have to experience it.
Let me jump
through-
in. Do you
That's-
after
that's my
30 after 30, 40 years, do you think humans are going to stop being stupid? Because I don't think so. Casinos
No, I
still
don't
exist.
agree with that.
Casinos
It's
still
getting more
exist.
stupid.
Life goes on. It's not just Bitcoin. You got all kinds of personal things you have to deal with. And so we do those things too. And that's why it's important. I think it's really important to build a community. It's really important that we watch each other's backs. That was my purpose. I'm sure not everybody agreed on who should be the Bitcoin standard bearers in 2020, but in my opinion, it's hands down some people that they don't need our financial support, but they certainly need our moral support. And it's going to get more challenging. I mean, you guys will probably come under far more persecution than what we've seen with, Arthur Hayes and BitMEX. I mean, this is all just by grace, by the grace of God. Of what purpose
Amen.
so I'm excited. I want to, I'm going to put all my energy into it, and yet I still have my responsibilities. And that's it. I mean, I'm excited, guys. I am stoked. Yeah, we'll do this.
I've got to run. I'm sorry about that.
I've got to go too, guys.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
you.
no,
Yeah,
we'll catch
you're
up.
gone.
bro.
We'll